This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Hello, football fans, and welcome to the Onside Kick. My name is Ricky Widmer, and as always, I'm joined by the Mark Weber.
Dub them E's.
And we're moving right along. We've only got, last week it was 3, and how numbers work, I don't know if you know how they work, Mark, but as you go through things, they go down in value.
They could go up.
We have 2 left. 2 divisions left, both of them on the east side of our great country.
Yeah, also known as the least side of the country.
Well, the AFC is not least. The AFC is still the East. It's the NFC that we like to dub
Always
the NFC least.
They could all be 10-win teams somehow, and
It would still be the
NFC least. Doesn't matter.
Always going to be the NFC least for the Onside
The
Kick.
NFC least to me.
And if you guys are new to the podcast, how we do this is, if you're on SoundCloud, it is the podcast all the way through. If you're on YouTube, you're going to get it in parts. We're going to look at each team and how they finished in the division. For this one, it's Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, Redskins in that order. Then we'll give our predictions at the end. And let's jump in right into it. We're going to start with the Dallas Cowboys. And the thing I like to do is I like to look at what the teams gained and what the teams lost. And if we look at free agency, they didn't really gain a lot. They just lost a lot. Greg Hardy's not on this team. That's why we're actually going to be able to talk about the Cowboys, because they're, what am I going to call it? The silent treatment that I was giving them for when they had Greg Hardy on this team has been lifted.
Less silent treatment and more just you put them at the very bottom of our power rankings every week.
Well, it's not just that. If you noticed anything about me personally, I wasn't going to give them any kind of publicity as long as he was on the team. That means talking about them whatsoever. Then they also lose Danny McCray, Tyler Klutz, and Jeremy Mincy are the top ones. They're big additions, though. I mean, they bring over Benson Mayowa from Oakland, Cedric Thorson from the Eagles, Alfred Morris comes in from the Redskins. Names that I go, okay. The biggest addition, though, they got through the draft, and that's Ezekiel Elliott, because to me, that is the most promising, I want to say. Not promising, maybe the most thing I'm excited for this season is you kind of have a rebuilding of what the Cowboys used to be in the 90s. They had Emmitt Smith, they had Aiken, they had Irving on the outside. Well, now you've got Des Bryant, you've got Tony Romo, you got Ezekiel Elliott, because I don't care if your name is Run DMC, get out of here, McFadden. You are not the starter in D-Town. It is all about Zeke Elliott and the crop top.
Yeah, they have a couple of good veterans out there in Darren McFadden and, of course, Alfred Morris. That's going to be very good, I think, to kind of get Ezekiel Elliott going. I don't know if he's really going to need help, adjusting to the NFL or anything, but at least if he struggles a little bit, you got 2 proven guys who can go out there, the veterans, and they can get some of those yards and let Ezekiel Elliott kind of find his feet, find his footing. But this team just 2 seasons ago with a great running back were moments away from getting themselves into a Super Bowl. That was the year they should have done it. Now they're still here, still got Des Bryant, still got the best offensive line in football, still got Tony Romo, but now have Ezekiel Elliott, so still having a great running attack. This is a team that once again can go right back into the Super Bowl. Ignore the 4-win season that they just had. That was a fluke of injuries.
Well, and that's it.
They're here. They're back.
It was just because of injuries. That's why they had that, like you said, that fluke of last season. And I'm going to go a step further. I don't think it was a fluke. They just got, I'm going to take the blame for it, because I kind of predicted them to go to the Super Bowl. And when that usually happens.
And Andrew Luck as well.
What happens?
They get hurt.
What happens when I pick teams to go to the Super Bowl?
They get hurt.
They usually get hurt. I mean, it's been the Bears. I want to say, me and Dave were just talking about it. I want to say It had to be like 2 or 3 years ago because it was when Dave was still on this podcast, and it was me, you, and him. I still remember it like it was yesterday because you picked the Saints. I had the Bears and the Saints. You had the Patriots going to the Super Bowl. I had the Bears beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl, I think. No, it was Bears-Ravens. Bears-Ravens. Had the Bears winning the Super Bowl. That was the year Jay Cutler just had a tremendously bad season. The Bears didn't go anywhere.
Well, it was Trestman's last season.
Yeah.
And as we all remember,
the stank.
When Mark Trestman has that last year somewhere,
the stank.
It's not too pretty. So these Dallas Cowboys, they're just set to go right back in. I mean, obviously with Tony Romo being hurt, with Des Bryant being hurt for a long time, this passing attack was useless. It didn't exist last year. So getting these guys back, it's going to be great. The run game's going to be back to form of what it was just 2 seasons ago. They still have this great offensive line. We did learn that you can't just put anybody behind the offensive line. That was the kind of original thought in Dallas last year. But getting Ezekiel Elliott, the best running back, this was the right move for them. It's exactly what they needed. It's going to be such a dangerous attack because Tony Romo will have all the time in the world to throw the ball, and Ezekiel Elliott will have this great line to move behind, who's just going to clear guys out of his way, and then people struggle to stop the guy anyways. So it's going to be interesting. My one thing that I would be kind of concerned about with the Dallas Cowboys, just those injuries again. Des Bryant's older. Tony Romo is older as well. So it's kind of hard to bounce back from those injuries, unlike when they were earlier in their season when Tony Romo was getting injured all the time and kept coming back. It's a little harder to do that now. So I would be concerned of if he slows down a little bit. And Dak Prescott, I don't want to see him going and taking the field.
No, you don't.
I don't want to see Kellen Moore do it either. Didn't we see Kellen Moore for one game last season? Is that what it was?
It might have been half of one. I believe that was the one where either him or Castle started it, and then the other one finished it.
Yeah, we don't want to see that. We don't want to see that again at all. So, luckily they don't have Brandon Weeden on the team, though.
And the biggest question, besides the injuries, because if this team can stay healthy, it's all about this defense to me. And I'm looking right now at powerfootballfocus.com, and they're kind of going through the rankings, and they rank the quarterback 13th, running back 10, not so bad, receiving core 15, okay, I'll take it, offensive line number 1. But then you get to the defense, the front 7, they rank them as 24th, and then the secondary, 30th. That ain't too good.
No.
That's not too good at all.
No, it's not. I mean, they got some good guys out there. They got Claiborne, got Orlando Sandrick out there. They've got weapons here that can help. But I don't think, I mean, what they were kind of looking for with Greg Hardy was that monster of a player, that guy that nobody could stop. And Greg Hardy, as terrible a person as he is, he had that mentality. He had that type of, playing style. So these Cowboys, they really need somebody to be that guy, to step up, to be that unstoppable monster, whether it's going to be a linebacker, whether it's going to be a pass rushing defensive end. They need something. But at the same time, remember this defensive coordinator, Rod Marinelli. This man's all about the turnovers.
Well, and you know all about Rob Marinelli because he used to be with the Bears.
And we can all, appreciate this today, when Peanut Tillman, as we're recording on Tuesday, decided to retire yesterday on Monday.
What a great way to retire, though. Did you see the video?
Yeah.
How he retired?
Yeah, Peanut was always kind of the class act of the NFL. I think it was multiple times that he won, or at least was in the running
Walter
for
Payton.
He was in the running for the Walter Payton all the time. So it's just a complete class act, and it was just fun to watch all those highlights because most of them he was in a Bears uniform. Made you feel good.
The peanut punch.
Yeah. So this is a team where Rod Marinelli wants to take the ball from the opposing team more so than he wants to, I would say more so than he wants to be some of those other teams like a Von Miller, where it's just constantly getting to the quarterback. Yes, he would love to do that, but what Rod Marinelli's teams have been known for is taking the ball away.
Yeah. And the one person I look at to be that pass rusher that you talked about, the guy that Jerry Jones was hoping that Greg Hardy would be last season, is Randy Gregory. However, the thing about Gregory, you're not going to see him for the first 4 games this season. He's suspended. Yeah. However, that means I look at those first 4 games, New York at home, Washington on the road, Chicago, and then at San Fran. If I'm coming out 2-2 in those games, maybe a win over New York, a win at San Fran, and then a lose 2 in the middle, I'm happy with that. Obviously, you'd want to be 3-1 or 4-0, but I don't think that's going to happen with Randy Gregory out, because I think that a guy like Jay Cutler can at least make you pay to lose. Kirk Cousins, I'm going to give him kind of some respect, and then Eli can always be Eli unless he decides to give you the game like he did to Dallas early last season. But the last thing I wanted to touch on with the Cowboys before we move on into the G-Men is Tony Romo. Because Romo is, I thought about this today. If you are a Cowboy fan that is thinking, man, Romo's past his prime, we need to get somebody new, I'm going to throw this out there for you. You want to know the big news coming out of Denver today, Mark?
Denver or Dallas?
Denver.
Okay.
Guess who they're saying would most likely, if the season started today, be the starting quarterback for the Broncos?
I got to think it's Mark Sanchez.
No, it's Trevor Siemian.
That's awful.
And the way I think of it is, if you're looking at Tony Romo thinking, man, he could be a lot better, especially in some playoff games, you could have Trevor Siemian.
You could
just think about that for a second.
You could have just drafted somebody in the first round and have him lose to Trevor Siemian.
You could have Trevor Siemian as your quarterback. So you got to be thankful there. And I was listening to Colin Cowherd today during my lunch, and he was talking about his 5 tiers of NFL quarterbacks. And the way he described Tony Romo was as close to the first tier as possible without being in that first tier. And here's how he explained the tiers. The first tier were stars in their prime. He had 4 of them. He had Andrew Luck, he had Cam, he had Aaron Rodgers, and he had Russell Wilson. Tier number 2 were stars that were out of their prime. This is the guys like Tom Brady, Romo, Big Ben, Phillip Rivers, Carson Palmer, Eli Manning. Tier 3, close, but never stars. This is your Jay Cutler, your Matt Ryan, your Alex Smith, your Joe Flacco's, your Matty Stafford's. Then you have the stars that could be. You've got Jameis, you've got Marcus, you've got Bridgewater, you got Bortles, you've got Derek Carr. And then there's his 5th where he called them Fool's Gold, where that's your Brock Osweiler, your Ryan Tannehill, your Andy Dalton. And then he had one more that I can't remember. That was Dalton, Tannehill, Osweiler, and I think like Kaepernick or something, or somebody. And I think he might have left off the 49er quarterback, to be honest with you. But I look at Romo and I think about what he said, close to being that first tier without actually being in the first tier. And I go, yeah, you're right. You're right. Like to me, it would be if he won a Super Bowl like Joe Flacco did, we're putting Tony Romo in the top tier, in the first tier of quarterbacks.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's always been the one gripe that people have with Tony Romo is the choke. You know, the guy can't get over that hump. And there's a lot of people that couldn't get over the hump. I mean, obviously everyone brings up Dan Marino. He's the guy who didn't get the ring.
He's the ultimate can't get over the humper.
Exactly. So, you know, in this situation, I'm not super, I don't know. I don't hold it against Tony Romo that much because Tony Romo constantly is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Especially if you just want to look at QBR. He's going to be one of the best for sure. I don't know. It's not completely his fault. He doesn't have the best. Well, he has to deal with Jerry Jones, so that's not good. I mean, I don't want to just use last year as the example, but you were talking about defense, you know, and how they were bad. One of the absolute worst, 30th in interceptions, 25 in sacks, And then, of course, forced fumbles. They were 30th. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. And those are the things that Rod Marinelli teams are supposed to be good at. We've asked this question last season, actually, if there should be coaching changes. And Jason Garrett still holds on to that job. I mean, Rod Marinelli, you see it here. This defense is terrible at the things they're supposed to be good at. You know, a guy like Lovie Smith.
I think Marinelli would be gone before Jason Garrett.
I think the whole thing should be gone if they don't go to the playoffs. If they don't win the division, everybody should be gone.
I think that Jerry Jones is too loyal to Jason Garrett. I think it's kind of like a thing that we're seeing here in Chicago with the Bulls where Garpax, they're going to stick around forever because Reinsdorf is one of the most loyal guys ever and won't oust a guy because he's that loyal to him. I think that's what we get with Jerry Jones and Jason Garrett.
This coaching staff, you know, they're doing fine. It's just that if you don't go to a Super Bowl, this team has been ready and been in the discussion for years. Even before Jason Garrett really became the head coach when he took that job. If they don't at least win the division this year, there's got to be something different. You know, there's got to be some kind of change. You don't have much left out of Tony Romo. I think you have to look at it like Denver looked at John Fox. For whatever reason, they said John Fox wasn't going to actually win this Super Bowl. So we got to get rid of him and get Gary Kubiak. Gary Kubiak will be the guy to do it, and Gary Kubiak was the guy to do it. I think you might have to look at something because this roster is set. They're good. Defense needs some work, but maybe you get a guy in there who can make that defense better. I mean, imagine this team if John Fox went there instead of Chicago. John Fox immediately got that defense playing better. Not great, better. And then got defensive players to come in there the following year.
And he gets a better quarterback in Tony Romo than Jay Cutler.
They would be, I mean, without a doubt, this year, we're already kind of talking about Super Bowl champion Dallas Cowboys here, potentially. But without a doubt, they are one of the favorites in the NFC. Not the favorite, but one of the favorites. Because they still already are pretty close to it.
And I like how you're bringing up the Jason Garrett hot seat kind of already, because the one thing you got to think about is if you can't get it done this year, how long are you going to have Tony Romo? Because right now, he's 36. He just turned 36, actually. So for this entire football season, he's going to be the age of 36. What, you may get him for, 2 more good years, possibly 4 more years overall? I mean, he could be, the injuries is key to be, how long is he going to play? But generally, I kind of use the Brett Favre model of, is he going to go till he's 40? You could possibly have him for another 4 years, but how many good years are you going to still have left of Tony Romo?
For sure. I mean, this is not a team that's set up to pull, once again, to bring up the Denver Broncos. They're not a team with a good defense that can carry an aging quarterback to that Super Bowl. They don't have that. That's not the luxury. Tony Romo is the strength. The offense is the strength. If if these injuries keep up, it's not going to look good for this team.
And the last thing I want to mention about Tony Romo, kind of go off of a stat that you kind of pulled a little bit where you said that one of the people's biggest gripes is Tony Romo can't get it done in the big games, man. He cannot get it done. He's 2 wins in playoff games over his career in D-Town? The way I see it is exactly like Cowherd said it today on his show. You're pulling a stat. I could come and hit him with the stat that Cowherd came up with, he's only got 2 wins in the playoffs, but he's also got the best QBR of any quarterback in the fourth quarter. So on both sides, you can kind of pull those stats. And another thing to look at is they came how close to going to, the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl when they lost to Green Bay? I want to say that was a divisional round game where it was a catch by Des Bryant, but the refs don't know what a catch is anymore because the league's all up in arms about what a catch is and what's not a catch, and nobody knows what a catch is anymore. And Des Bryant caught the ball, and it wasn't a catch. So think about that. They were that close from going on into that season and possibly going to the Super Bowl. Well, let's move on into the New York Football Giants and some of the big free agency losses. Josh Brown no longer with the team. Prince Amukamara, he is now in Jacksonville. You've got Jeff Schwartz is now with the Lions. Brandon Merriweather, Danny Akins is gone. some of the big names. Some of the guys they gained. Damon Harrison coming over from the Jets. Janoris Jenkins coming over from the Rams. Olivier Vernon coming over from the Miami Dolphins. Some of the big guys coming over. I forgot Robert Ayers. He is now in Tampa Bay. And then if you look at their draft, their big draft picks, yeah, they get Sterling Shepard, the wide receiver that I like, that I think can develop into a number 2 on the opposite side of OBJ. But the big pick for them is going with a cornerback, 10th overall with Eli Apple. Now you got an Eli on the defensive side and an Eli on the offensive
pretty
side.
Elite team.
With Coach McAdoo coming in, this is his first season as head coach. What are you thinking about the G-Men in 2016?
Well, I think that there was a lot of kind of these they let games get away. They really did. Mm-hmm. You can blame some of that on this defense, which definitely was by far not the strong part of this team. They gave up more points than almost everybody. But this was a great offense. And that's why McAdoo is the head coach of the team right now, because this offense was so great, and that was his offense.
We talked about it each year. When was Tom Coughlin going to go? When was he going to get the king?
Finally happened. But the one thing that's most important to think about with the New York Giants, 11 games were lost by a touchdown or less. 11 games.
That's a lot.
That's a ton. So many. And they got off to that rocky start in Dallas. That set the pace for the whole season. From there, it essentially was done. They lost so many games based on their own merit.
I mean, I'm looking at it now. You've got Dallas, Atlanta, New Orleans, which was a high-scoring game. You lose by a point to the Patriots. You lose by 6 to Washington. That's 5 right there. Overtime loss to the Jets is 6. Carolina and Philly. That's a ton of one-score losses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's ridiculous how this team was able to not only let teams score all over them, but this is, Eli Manning's out there. You got OBJ. This team should be set up to, go head-to-head with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's what the New York Giants are supposed to be. The problem is they just didn't, I don't know if I want to completely put it at the mental ability there, but they just weren't able to do it. That's why the coaching change happened, because they're saying Tom Coughlin is not getting out of these players what we need to get. We need somebody else to do it, because 11 games lost by a touchdown or less. You start to flip some of those games around. I mean, you can't flip all of them around, but all of a sudden this team is not I guess it's 10.
Yeah, I don't
10,
think,
not 11.
what I was going to
but
say
it's
is
suddenly not a horrible team.
I don't think it's 11. I think it's 8 of them were lost by a score of 1. Mm-hmm. 3 of their wins were one-score games. So I think it's 11 total.
Yeah.
3 of those, though, you're 3-8 in one-score games last season, which is not good.
You start to flip some of those around. Even if you won half of those, suddenly you're a 10-16.
You can maybe make the playoffs then. And the big question for me moving forward...
Well, they would have won their division if they won half.
They would have won the division if they won half. But the big question for me with this team moving forward, and I kind of hate that I'm going to throw this question out there, but this is another team where, just like Tony Romo with the Cowboys, when do you start to think of, okay, we got to start to win now, because how many years is Elite Manning, sorry, I forgot to say his name correctly, how many years is Elite Manning going to be with the Giants? I'm not saying he goes anywhere. I'm just saying until he hangs it up and says, you know what, I'm going to follow my brother to the golf course.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because he's 35.
He's
only
can't
a
have
year
that
younger
much
than Romo
left in him. But this is a team that's what they're trying to do. They are trying to win now. Just like, the Dallas Cowboys, they've got a great explosive offense. Mm-hmm. They mirror the Dallas Cowboys pretty well in the sense of, hey, you got a great wide receiver, one of the best. You've got a great quarterback, running game is pretty damn good as well.
Not as good as D-Town, though.
No, of course.
Not as good as D-Town.
But the thing that is going to hurt the Giants more so than what is the best advantage to the Dallas Cowboys, offensive line. Offensive line in New York is not that great. It is definitely not that great. They need some work there. It's going to pressure Eli Manning, and when you pressure Eli Manning, you get to him pretty quick. The man throws interceptions like nobody else. He loves to throw interceptions. So that's the kind of issue that I would have for them when I think of how they can do better. Eli Manning last year was like right in the middle of quarterbacks. Not bad, not great, just right in the middle. Yet he threw tons and tons of tons and tons of touchdowns last year. Pretty sure he threw a lot of interceptions too, but tons of touchdowns.
And I'm looking at their schedule right now, and I don't think I'm going to go into the favor of the schedule holders didn't do them any favors because they have the perfect bye to me. Week 8. Oh, what a great bye. Towards the middle of the season, you've got 7.
It's not quite your week 9.
It's not quite your week 9, but like if you have 8, 9, 10, those are, or maybe not 8,
10's
9,
a little
10.
much.
Yeah, maybe 8 or 9. 8 or 9 is your sweet spot. And I look at their first half of the year, it's going to be tough. Dallas is going to be tough. Washington's going to be tough. Minnesota and Green Bay both on the road. Oh, by the way, that Dallas game is on the road too. And then the Ravens, they're a question mark to me because which Ravens team are we going to see? I'll only give them 3 wins. Saints, Ravens, and Rams are the only 3 wins that I'm giving you for sure going into your bye. If you go, that would be 3 and 4 into that bye. That's not good. You got to steal a game against the Redskins, steal a game against the Cowboys, maybe against the Packers or the Vikings. Because that second half, how are the Eagles going to do this season with a new coach? You play the Redskins again. You've got Pittsburgh on the road. Cleveland, I'll give you that one because they're the Browns. The Bears. Bears usually are not the Bears, but teams in John Fox's second year tend to make Super Bowl runs in his second year. So you've got that going for you. And then, oh yeah, by the way, you've got the Bengals as well. So I think because of how loaded that second half is, you have to capitalize on the first half.
Yeah, I mean, this team, the key to success for the New York Giants really are shootouts. They got to win the shootouts. They can't be having these games where they're losing, by 3 points, by 2 points. When it comes to, a game like, the Vikings, defense is too good. But a team like the Cowboys, you can go toe-to-toe. Even I know people say that we undervalue the Packers' defense. I don't agree. I think we value them perfectly.
Well, you want to know what I say to that? Fuck the Packers. That's what I say to that.
The Giants can go toe-to-toe with them offensively. They can do it against these lesser teams. I think they'll be fine against Andy Dalton and the Bengals. They can go toe-to-toe with them. The Bears, that defense, they'll be able to put a lot of pressure on him, but still, they can probably go toe-to-toe with Chicago's offense. They're a better offense than Chicago's for sure, but they'll go toe-to-toe just fine. They just have to not make the mistakes. I know that's obvious. John Madden's showing up again this week. That's really obvious, but you have to not make these dumb decisions.
The Turduncan here, and boom!
Exactly.
That's a bad Madden. I apologize for that. That is a bad Madden. That was just terrible, man.
You tried,
though. Terrible.
You tried, and I'm proud of you.
I tried my best. Not all of us could do the good Madden impersonations, but yeah, for me, it's how's this offense going to go up against some of the defenses? Because you look at it, capitalize on Dallas. Their defense is weak. You've now got Josh Norman on that Redskin team. Oh, guess what? Your main wide receiver is a little bit of a thing with Josh Norman. Something about a metal baseball bat, I believe, was said during that game. Minnesota's got a good defense. Green Bay, let's give their defense some credit, I guess. The Bears have a good defense. The Steelers have a good defense. These teams have good defenses. Even the Bengals have a good defense. So it's all about... I want to agree with you with the shootout comment of just score more points. basic John Madden.
That's the way they're trying. That's the way they're trying to build this team.
However, one of the big questions is what is Olivier Vernon going to bring to this team? Because we haven't touched him yet.
Yeah, well, the whole defense is a mystery because it's just a free for all of spending money. I mean, his contract alone, eats up a huge amount of the money that's spent on this defense. But they basically went with the mentality that usually doesn't work of, hey, we got this one thing that's good, let's just buy the other thing. At least enough to where we have, the ability to compete. Because they really could not compete on defense last year. They really couldn't. So going forward with this, I don't know. I'm nervous about the thought of we just kind of bought this and we're going to hope it goes well. I mean, Vernon is a monster. Pair him up with JPP, which, he wasn't as productive last year because he had some obvious issues last year.
As of right now, I'm looking at ourlads.com, which I like to use for the NFL depth charts. They've got JPP second behind Vernon.
Which
right?
I think would make sense, the thought of it, just because of last year was a down year and he wasn't there for a chunk of it. I don't doubt that.
And I mean, I'm not even going to try to butcher this name, but right now on the defensive line, they've got Vernon matched up with, I'll try to say his first name.
I'm not going to try it. I'm going to try it.
Owambi? That's his first name. That last name, I'm not even going to try to touch. They've got him matched up with that. So, Giants fans, let me know the pronunciation down below because that's a bunch of mouth puke to me.
But I mean, Janoris Jenkins and Roger Cromartie.
Well, and look at that. I mean, you bring in, I mentioned Damon Harrison. Right now, it looks like he's going to start on the line. He's a free agent that you brought in. Janoris Jenkins, another one. He's a free agent that you brought in. Olivier Vernon, he's a free agent that you brought in. JT Thomas, I believe, is a free agent that they brought in. They have a ton of free agents on this line, so it's kind of like what you said. Let's buy ourselves a defense and then hope that the offense we have in place with McAdoo at the helm now can be enough to win some more games this season.
Yeah, I don't believe in that mentality because usually when you just start buying players, the chemistry is just what's not there. There's too many unique guys, too many new guys thinking about what they did somewhere else and who they were playing with somewhere else. It's hard to mesh that together. It can work sometimes, and maybe this is the time, but when you're going to start, 4, 5, 6 new guys who are just elsewhere, it's just hard to get that mentality going. It really is. But, if they can just perform admirably, and then this offense goes and just does what they're built to do, which is go head-to-head and shoot out with teams, they can actually compete for the division. I think a lot of people are kind of
writing them off.
Yeah, just right off the bat because last year, they only won 6 games and they weren't that great. They got a new head coach. They're rebuilding this defense, which was bad last year. A lot of people are just saying, no, it's not going to happen. Give them a year or two. I think they can do it. I think they can compete to win this division because anyone really can compete to win the division. It's the NFC East after all. Can't forget that.